You trust.
To a story which we touched on a couple of weeks ago, actually. Probably the oldest gay man in Britain, or possibly the oldest gay man in Britain, is going to Downing Street today to demand an apology for the fact that he and 49,000 other gay men were given criminal convictions just for being gay, for their sexuality. And George Montague is now 93. A couple of weeks ago, you remember the government announced it was going to give posthumous pardons to gay and bisexual men who were convicted of those now abolished sex offences. But George says he doesn't want a pardon. He wants an apology. George, you ready for your trip today?
Yes.
Do you know how it works? Do you get to see any of the high-ups when you're there?
I shouldn't think so. I don't mind. I just want to hand in the petition that all the wonderful people in Brighton have signed over the last 6 months.
George, this is really important to you. I mean, a lot of people would be quite happy with a pardon. I know we've spoken before that you want the apology. Do you think, in all honesty, you're going to get an apology before you die?
I have no doubts whatsoever. Everybody surely, if you accept a pardon, it means you are guilty. I know for a fact there are some people who the trial goes wrong and it's unfair and they're sent to prison. And they're told, if you admit your guilt, we will release you. They won't. I've known and read about it. They stay in prison rather than accept a pardon. And I will never accept a pardon. How can you accept a pardon for being born only able to love another man?
George, when did you first realise that you were gay?
Oh, not until I didn't admit it to myself until I was nearly 30.
Really? That's interesting, right, isn't it? Because, I mean, many people...
I had a girlfriend and tried it out, and it didn't work. And I found a wonderful man. And realised that I was gay.
When you were convicted, was that a shaming incident?
Oh, not at all. No, the point is, ever since the war ended, the authorities went out of their way to crack down on homosexuality. They considered it a disease that was catching. They did everything they possibly could to stamp it out.
So what was your crime? What did you do?
Crime?
Yeah, I mean, at the time.
In those days, there were no internet, no gay bars, nowhere to go whatsoever. And if you are like that, you want every living species in the world looks for a mate. Why weren't we gay people allowed to look for a mate?
So the only place you could do it were in...
I don't use the word public. It was a gentleman's toilet. And the thing is, in those days, there was hardly anybody in there except other gay men. Quite honestly, all the local delivery men in the area were allowed legally to relieve themselves against the rear wheel of their vehicle. They never bothered to travel all the way to a public toilet. And everyone that worked, anywhere they worked, there were toilets everywhere.
Do you remember your arrest?
Of course.
What happened?
But I wasn't in the urinals. I was in a locked cubicle.
Right.
But the police didn't care.
They came in, did they?
In that premises, and your name was on the queer list, which is what they had. They had my name. They found out everybody that was gay and put you on a queer list. You had no chance. They listened to no matter what counsel or defence you had. If you were in a place like that and your name was on the queer list, you were gay, and therefore, if you were gay in those days, you were guilty.
So presumably, your court appearance must have been pretty short, was it?
By what?
Did you go to court, or was it...
Well, it's a bit of a longer story. I obviously thought about going to a trial.
Yeah.
But then, a great friend of mine, a local famous doctor in Maidenhead, he did that. He was a gay, but the police knew about him. He was on the queer list, and they went for him. He hadn't done anything at all. But on a trumped-up charge, he went through 2 whole trials in the Old Bailey. It cost him a fortune. And, of course, everybody will know although he wasn't guilty of anything, he was guilty in everybody else's eyes.
Well, guilty by the law of the time, wasn't he?
So, it killed him. After a couple of years, he died.
Really? Wow.
I didn't do that. I went to the local magistrate. I knew full well the result. I thought that's better than it being in the papers, which I managed to avoid. I was very well known in the area. The local reporters knew me as friends.
George, I'm not sure what the government would lose by apologising. I mean, if they have pardoned people, why not say sorry as well? What would it mean to you if it actually happened?
Wonderful. I don't even want my conviction scrubbed off. I don't care whether they do or not. I just want an apology for the way my generation was treated. Young gays today have never had it so good. We didn't.
George, thanks very much indeed. Have a good trip to Downing Street today, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much.
10-2. BBC Sussex, Simon Jenkins has the headlines.
Thanks, Neil. Good morning. The boss of the patient transport company Co-Performer